Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. It is Romania time. Why? Because I'm wearing a Romanian traditional shirt. Now, what do we have here? The, how they call him, far-right candidate to the Romanian presidency, Mr. Calin Georgescu, not only has a majority, according to the polls, in, winning the elections if the Romanian elections are allowed to be held, and if he is allowed to run. What's going on here? Mr. Calin Georgescu says something that I said for some time already. If you've been around here, you heard me saying that many, many times. And that is, Ukraine has Romanian territories that need to come back to Romania. And the country of Moldova is, as I call it, a fake country. It's an artificial country created by the Soviets, by Stalin, after he took it from Romania in 1940 through an ultimatum. I will explain. I have 3 maps, 2 articles. The far right pulls back its candidates for the presidency to make sure that their people vote for Mr. Calin Georgescu in the next elections if the guys in charge of Romania allow the elections to be conducted. All right, let's start with the first article. First article obviously comes from Ukrainska Pravda, and it brands Calin Georgescu as far right. Because if you're a patriotic nationalist guy loving your country and disagreeing with their agenda and fighting for your people's interest first, you're called something bad. In this case, far right has a bad connotation. We are supposed to internalize that and transmit that to our children. So far right Romanian presidential candidate wants Ukraine to be divided and part of it taken over by Romania. And obviously with Roman salute, that's the implication of this little hello sign. I believe that's the case because I know how these guys operate. All right, let's see what these baboons are saying. Calin Georgescu, a far-right pro-Russian Romanian politician. All these are obviously exaggerated and debatable, and they are, I think, lies by omission. Has called Ukraine a fictitious state and said that its division between neighboring states is inevitable. I am 98%. I not agree with that. I think the possibility, I go with 98%. Georgescu said, the world is changing. Borders will change. Moreover, if the borders change, where will we be? We have northern Bukovina, I will show you on the map where that is, which is of interest. We have Bujac. We have northern Maramuresh, right? From the former, what was it called? Transcarpathia. You get into trouble here with the Hungarians. There are also Hungarians, Lviv, which will remain with the Poles, and Malorussia. Malorussia is Belarusia, said Georgescu. No, Malorussians are Ukrainians, I'm sorry, because the Russians are called Ukrainians. Malorussians. Malo comes from Malenki, which is small. The little Russians, the Malorussia, it's Ukraine, not Belarus. I'm sorry. All right, so he said, continue here. He said that the division of Ukraine is inevitable. I know someone who was called Malenki when he was small. 100% it will happen. I'm quoting. Well, they have no other way. The path to something like this is inevitable. Ukraine is a fictitious state. It is the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, and quote Georgescu said. For reference, according to the Ukrainians, the northern part of Bukovina is part of the Bukovina region, is now located in Ukraine's Chernivtsi Oblast. In the west of the country, Budzak is a historical region in Ukraine's south, located in south, between the mouth of Danube and Dniester and the Black Sea. I will show you Budak, and is now part of Odessa Oblast. Northern Maramuresh is a geographic historical region comprising roughly the eastern half of Zakarpattia Oblast in Ukraine's west, near the border with Romania. Alright, but he didn't go to Moldova. Let me show you maps. This is the map of Europe. Romania is right here in purple, or whatever that is, purple rain. And Moldova is right here with this blue Christmas. I'm going to come closer with a map. I'm just going to show you in this big scheme of things. So this is Budak right here. They were talking about Budak. The Transcarpathia is from here. This is Hungary. From here going here. This is Zakarpattia. This is Maramuresh. I will show you closer, okay? The Romanians say no, half of it plus the northern Bukovina, which is right here. So this part here, Calin Georgescu talks about, and Bujac. And obviously, Republic of Moldova should come back. Next, let me show you another map, which is the same, but a little bit clearer for people who are not familiar with the geography of the area. And I will show you the Great Romania. This is how Romania looked between the wars, the First World War and the Second World War. So here is Dobroja. This part here is called Quadrilater. It was given to Bulgaria. Bulgaria took it with the Germans and then took it with the Soviets. Now they're talking about Bukovina here. That was taken right here. This part right here is taken by the Ukrainians in this moment, and this is Bujac right here, and this is Basarabia. But Basarabia is called Moldova nowadays. Remember, Basarabia is called Moldova. Let's go to this one. But it's actually part of Moldova if you go and talk to Stefan the Great. The Ukrainians were not around at that time, but nevertheless, the Poles were, because the Poles attacked this area all the time. Now, here is, again, Maramuresh, how big it was. Romania claims this part on top of it. Let's go to another map. Here is the map of Ukraine. This is the part of Romania we're talking about, just to see clearer. This is Bujac. Used to be Romania, but he doesn't talk about the Snake Island, where my strong hand is located. Right there is the Snake Island, right exactly there. That's a little thing where history says that Achilles, our hero, or the ancient Greek hero, hero was buried after the Trojan War, right there in the Black Sea, on that little island. So that, together with Budak, together with Moldova, together with northern Bukovina, because southern is here, plus the Zakarpattia area and Maramuresh, all these should come back to Romania, he says. And this is Zakarpattia that the Hungarians want, and the Poles want everything from there. This is Poland from here to probably here. All this because at one time, for some decades, it belongs to the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Why? Because these were invaders, the Polish. But the Poles now, they talk about the Soviets and the Nazis in the Second World War, but they, with the Lithuanians, fucked everything up here. But hey, we're not supposed to talk about it, right, my Polish friends? So this is what we're talking about. This is Budak. All this, he said, should come back. And he's a far right for saying that. I will explain a little bit the historical how this got to be given, taken from Romania, given to Ukrainska. Next, this was pointed out to me by a friend on X. He sent me a video which had this as a reference, and I thought it was very interesting, so thank you very much. Romanian Conservatives stepped down to support Georgescu in rerun elections. So we have here Mr. Simion, the head of our party, the far-right party, who supports Mr. Calin Georgescu. He was a candidate for presidency. He probably withdraws his candidacy to allow the Romanians to vote more for Mr. Calin Georgescu. Romania's Conservative Party, AUR, has announced it will pull out of the forthcoming rerun of the country's presidential election to support the winner of the previous annulled ballot, Calin Georgescu. So they annul it because the wrong person won the first round. The Alliance for the Union of Romanians, AUR, means gold, has repeatedly denounced the decision to cancel the previous 2024 vote over vague claims of Romanian interference via the TikTok social media platform. The party gathered on January 22nd to discuss how the best to move forward on the issue. Speaking in a press release, AUR has now vowed to support Georgescu despite the party's misgivings about the independent politicians' stances on Russia and NATO. So, regarding the presidential elections, I'm quoting, AUR voted unanimously to re-enter the constitutional framework by resuming the second round of the presidential elections, the AUR said. At the same time, in view of organizing another round of presidential elections, the AUR members gathered at the CNC meeting reiterated the party's position to support the will expressed by Romanians in November 24 elections, namely to support Mr. Calin Georgescu. George Simion, our president, the guy featured in that picture that I showed you, and the former party candidate for the position of Romanian president, reiterated the position of his personal Facebook page. He suggested he would be better off attempting to become the country's prime minister than contesting the presidency. And I'm quoting, please do not put me in polls. I am not running, he said. I would be better as prime minister than president, but only Romanians can decide that, and NATO and Americans and all that. So, good, fantastic, excellent. If you guys are going to be allowed to run, at least Georgescu, and if this guy Simion will not be, slapped with some kiddie on his laptop or something. They do this all the time. Now, what's going on here? Let's talk about those provinces. I will start the history, unfortunately. I'm not going to go into 18th century, 16th century, because if I have to do this, I'm going to go to the Thracians. And if I go to the Thracians, I go to the Dacians. And when those guys were around, there was no Slavic people in the region. So no Russians, no Belarusians, no Malo-Russians, no Ukrainian Russians. Nobody. No Poles. Okay, no Bulgarians. All right, they were not there. It was the Thracians. Now, if we agree that the Thracians, Dacians, are the ancestors of Romania, and the Romans, through this, created the Romanian people, then we were over there first, so fuck off. All right, let's start with that one. I should have started, but nevertheless. So the territories that I showed you here, I featured in the Great Romania, are not actually the territories where the Dacians, or the more correctly, the Thracians lived. It's much bigger in Europe, much bigger. So we should take part of Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Poland, and from Yugoslavia with Serbia, Bulgaria. We should take, if we talk about that, as the Native Americans in America talk about. If you go by that, we were some of the first. We didn't come from anywhere, did we? I mean, we, the Greeks, who else? Not even the Latins were around. Because we're the other guys that the Latins screwed up. What are the names? What are the names of those guys? I can't remember who were around, and then the Latins took over Italy. What are the names, man? Etruscans. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so if you want to talk about that one, and you had some savages somewhere in the, the Germanic tribes, and then north some savages from, they were savages. The Germanic tribes were savages at that point when, Julius Caesar, and not only was fighting them, they were barbaric. The Romans called everybody barbaric. Why? Because they said these guys are talking like That's where barbaric comes from talking like That's how the Romans heard everybody else talking. All right, that's what I read. So and then you go to the British Isles. What did you have over there? I don't know, picking things from trees. Anyway, so what do we have here? We have the Romanians or the Thracians, if we talk about that. So that's why I'm starting when actually were countries around. Countries. Romania, the big Romania, that's what I'm going to start it, was like that after the First World War. Good or bad? Moldova was part of, I'm going to go to what, 16th century, 15th century, when it was not only, Stefan the Great, but Moldova was founded much earlier than that. The Ukrainians were nowhere in sight at that time. All right, look into history and find when you're going to find them. And you can say, well, when was the name Romanian instituted? Well, the problem is the Romanians did not identify themselves as Romanians, but as Romans or Christians at the time. That's why, and they decided I can remember who the hell was. After the unification of Romania, what was his name? Cogalnicianu, was it? I can't remember who came with the term, we are going to call this country Romania, and we're going to call ourselves Romanians. Romanians did not call themselves Romanians. Valachs were called by the Slavic countries. Valach is Valachian. That's how the Romanians, the Romans in those areas were called by the incoming migratory tribes of the Slavs. The Slavs came from somewhere else. Anyway, we all came from somewhere. We all came from Africa. Okay, so what happened? In 1940, Stalin, the Georgian tyrant of Soviet Union, not of Russia, of Soviet Union, sent a little ultimatum to the Romanians, as Hitler sent to the Poles in 1939, remember? You're going to give us Bukovina and Basarabia. And thank me that I don't take the whole Moldova, because he said we should go up to the Carpathians. This is what he said. We deserve until here. We should have this, he said, Stalin. But I'm a nice guy, I'm going to take only this. That's what he said. And then it was he who gave this part to Ukraine. He gave this part to Ukraine, and he who created this as a country. So Basarabia, the so-called Moldova nowadays, is a garbage coming from Stalin. And then after 1991, if someone steals something from you, and then someone that is caught or dies, what should happen to your property that was stolen from you? It should come back to you. Therefore, all those territories taken by Stalin, given to a country that did not exist before 1918 as a country, as a name, all right, people were around. Now, are there Russians? The Russians claim that the Ukrainians are actually Polish, how call it, with Polish, are Russians with Polish influences. That's how they call them. And they call them mother Russians, little Russians, small, malenki, small Russians. So here it is, my friends, in a nutshell. And Calin Georgescu says, you know what, we gonna take this back, and Ukraine will disintegrate. Well, there are a lot of people ready with their knives to cut off Ukraine. And I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you on this map right here how that could happen. Russia will take at least up to Kiev, at least up here. The Russians will take this if they can. They will not allow the Ukrainians, whatever is going to be part of, they're going to take this Odessa as well. I don't know if they're going to allow this to come to Romania or this or that, the Russians, because they will be in control. The Poles will invade here. When the Russians will advance more and more towards Kiev, they will come here and will claim we need to invade to protect our ethnic group, like the Russians did here. Remember, when the Russians invaded, unprovoked, this part, the Donbass, they say, well, we're going to protect our, ethnic group, Russians living here, that the Kiev is killing. The same will be claimed by the Poles. Remember, when Stalin gave an ultimatum to the Romanians in 1940, okay, light, you want to come with my face? Come, I don't give a shit, there you have it, my eye. So when Stalin gave the ultimatum to Romanians, the Romanians did not fight, gave it. When the Germans gave the ultimatum to the Poles fought. Why? Because behind them it was Great Britain and France. Behind Romania was whom? I'm listening. Was that Germany? Were there allies? Go and study that one. So let's finish with this. Who's going to take what from Ukraine? Possible that Calin Georgescu is talking about. Then we have, as I said, this is going to be taken by the Poles. The Hungarians will probably take this. The Slovaks will not take anything. The Romanians, if they will be allowed by the Americans with the agreement of the Russians, could take things back. But the problem is, why do you want to be part of a mafia state? From a little mafia. This is a little mafia state. This is a big mafia state. So these guys are in control of this neighborhood. If these guys decide to come in this one, to unite with the big mafia, they will not be in control. These guys in Bucharest mafia will be in control of that. So why would the Moldovans or the Romanians living in Moldova, the population, want to be part of the big mafia state? I'd rather be in charge of this house than being, in a city where some other guy is going to be in charge of my house. I'd rather be the master of my house, not allow other people being in charge. Fucking whatever. All right, yeah, you think you can do this? You can do this? All right, there you go. So that's the way it is, my friends. Calin Georgescu talks smack. No, he's talking what a lot of Romanians believe in and trust him. That's not good for many reasons. But if the situation comes in such a way that is between the Russians taking over Budak and all those areas versus the Romanians, which are part of NATO and the European Union, I guarantee you the masters of this planet will agree with the Russians. Okay, let's recut and redesign the borders of Europe a little bit. They did it before, and Russians right now are not the Soviets that the loving countries of America and Great Britain dealt with, negotiated in the 1945 and on. They gave half of Europe almost to the Soviets. Now those were criminals then, with Stalin and all those Kaganovich and all those Yogodas and so on. Now they give it to Putin. It's not the same thing. I'm not saying it should be given, but this is the way these guys do. They deal with the little other nations, how much they sell them in slavery. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.